Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. As we think about the Israelites entering into the land of Canaan, into the promised land, one of the greatest dangers they would encounter would not be so much the sword or the bow and arrow or the chariots that might come to meet them. The greatest danger that they would encounter is bad influences. Because when it comes to the battles, the swords and the bows and arrows and the chariots, God had all that covered. The Lord was going to give them sure victory. But what would undermine all that is if they followed after bad influences and allowed people to influence them to serve other gods besides the true and living God. And as we look at their history, that's ultimately what caused Israel to go into captivity and to have their enemies overtake them, is because they began to serve idols. They began to serve other gods. And so Deuteronomy chapter 13 is all about trying to protect them from these evil influences. The beginning of it talks about a prophet, even a person who perhaps who's posing as a prophet, and maybe even some of the things that he says comes true, yet he's trying to turn them away from the true and living God. They were to deal with that appropriately. But not only a prophet, but it could be a family member, maybe a brother or a sister or a father or whoever it might be. If they began to lead them astray, they were to deal with that in a very certain way. Even a dear friend who just posed the question, hey, let's go serve these other gods. They were to deal with that as well. And then even if a whole city turned away from the Lord, there were things to do that they were to do to deal with that. And so what this shows us is that bad influences can come from a lot of different directions. It can come from those who we might think are in a level of, or in a position of a spiritual position in which they seem to have some type of authority, some type of respect that can turn us away. It can come from family members. It can come from a friend. It can come from a whole city or a whole society. Bad influences can come from all different directions. Even in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, we read that bad company corrupts good morals. And so Israel, if they would allow these bad influences to take over, as we see that they actually do allow these bad influences to take over, it would undermine everything that they were about, and it would end in their demise, basically. And the same thing is true with us. We have to be very careful about what type of influences we have in our lives. And it may not even be a friend. It may not be a person like a preacher or something like that, although those type of people can move us in the wrong direction, even though they actually should be leading us closer to the Lord. Sometimes we can be misdirected. But it can also come from people we don't even know. It can come from people who come to us through the television or through radio or through a website or through social media, whatever it might be. Influences have more power now than perhaps they ever did, at least more access to us than they ever have. We just have to be real careful about what we come into contact with, who we come into contact with, who we listen to, who we allow to influence us in our hearts and in our minds, and guard ourselves against that. Because we know that through Christ we have the victory. Through Christ we can overcome. Through Christ we can enter into the good land, into the new heavens and the new earth that God has prepared for us. But that can be undermined if we allow people to draw us away from the Lord and to lose faith and to walk away from Jesus. Something we got to look out for, just as the Israelites had to look out for. And so today, and moving on from today through the rest of our lives, let's try to prepare ourselves to really protect ourselves from bad influences, wherever they come from. Whether it comes from a dear friend, whether it comes from a family member, whether it comes from our society, or even if it comes from a spiritual leader. Wherever it comes from, we have to just guard ourselves and weigh everything in light of scriptures. and say, is what this person telling me in line with what God has told me through his word? And by us daily contacting the word, as we do here in our daily encounter, it'll equip us and help us more and more to know when someone's telling you something, if it's really in line with scriptures or whether it's not in line with scriptures, as we become more and more familiar with the scriptures because we're contacting it on a daily basis. So let's make that one of our goals as we go through the scriptures, as we read through the Bible through the year, to get familiar with it, to know what it says, to understand it, so that we won't be misled. So we won't have people bringing us and influencing us in a bad way. So with that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.